If there's one thing we're sure of, it's that in today's globalized world, the dominant human group that spreads the most influence is the Anglos. Today, it's in the form of the United States. A century ago, it was the United Kingdom. And how did the British achieve the feat of becoming the most extensive maritime empire of all time? Largely thanks to the jewel in the crown, India. The problem is that the distance between London and New Delhi is more than 6,700 kilometers. So, to connect with such a distant territory, they had to build a direct route, right? So, if you ever wondered why the British were so eager to conquer small islands, random all over the globe, today I'm here to explain how a maritime empire is built. An empire that shows its glorious past in tremendous cities like London, Birmingham, or Manchester. So many centuries of imperial greatness leave a country with a solid economy, high labor standards, and a network of top-level universities and research centers. The United Kingdom also has a great public health system and infrastructure. Come on, it's the first world turned into a country. Plus, if you already speak English, which I hope you do, your life is already sorted out. Have you ever thought about moving to this great country? But do you feel lazy just thinking about the boring paperwork that comes with it? I have some great news for you, and a little gift that I'll tell you about today. You can save yourself all that paperwork with Living Europe. At Living Europe, you'll find the best experts in legal advice for your arrival in the United Kingdom or any country in Europe. Whether you want to work or study, Living Europe will look into your case and support you from the first consultation until you settle in the country. Since you follow El Mapa de Sebas, here's a small gift for you. Contact the WhatsApp number you can access with this QR code or the email I'll put in the description and first comment. Tell them you're reaching out on my behalf and you'll get a first consultation completely free. Feel free to ask any questions. Give the old continent a chance. It could be your final destination. I've decided to stay. Focus on your plans and Living Europe will handle everything else. Back to our topic. Are you interested in knowing how the United Kingdom built such a huge empire and those incredible routes to India? Are you interested? Alright then, stay until the end of the video. To understand the relationship between England and India, we need to go back to the year 1600 when the British East India Company, or British East India Company, was founded. The first of many privileged European companies created to encourage Asian trade with the direct support of the British monarchy. Its initial modus operandi was to build a series of coastal factories throughout the 17th century, some of them on top of those already built by the Portuguese. That is, fortified trading ports in cities like Bombay and Calcutta, which gave it commercial power but not territorial power yet. The big obstacle was that the British were not the only Europeans trading in India, and that the territory was also largely controlled by local states, such as the empire. Mughal, not Mongol. In 1757, they expelled their main rivals, the French, at the Battle of Plassey, in the context of the 7 Years' War, once their main rival was out. The British overwhelmed the Mughal emperors, who in 1765 signed the Treaty of Allahabad, which authorized them to collect taxes in some regions of the empire. That is, the British Company representing the Crown. It is now a state within another state, with its own army and fiscal power. Why are they giving it powers? Already during the 19th century, the CBIO systematically defeats the remaining powers. In 1799, Tipu Sultan in the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, in 1818, the Maratha Empire, and in 1849, the Sikhs. The Indians were not going to just stay calm though, because in 1858, the Great Sepoy Rebellion, or Indian Soldiers' Rebellion, took place, which was easily suppressed. As a consequence, In that same year, the Government of India Act was signed, the East India Company was dissolved, and the British Crown assumed direct control of India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Thus, the British Raj was born. We find ourselves at the height of British imperial power, the Victorian era, which lasted until the 20th century. Now I'll explain to you why India truly deserves the title of the jewel in the crown. First, because of extractivism, the Raj was turned into a forced producer of raw materials such as cotton, indigo, tea, and opium to feed British factories. Furthermore, it became the largest captive market in the world for British manufactured goods by maintaining a monopoly over such a tremendous population. This surplus in India's trade balance with the rest of the world was used by London to cover its global deficit. In other words, Indian wealth financed British investments, such as military ones, for example. Speaking of war during the Victorian era, the Indian Army, paid for and financed by the taxes of the Indians themselves, was used to expand and defend the British Empire all over the world. The conquests in Egypt, Sudan, China, and East Africa were carried out largely with Indian military personnel. But perhaps the most outrageous act was the use of cannon fodder from Indian, Pakistani, and Bengali soldiers during the World Wars. During the first, about 1.3 million soldiers from the Raj were mobilized to fight on the Western Front. In the second, more than 2.5 million fought, mainly in North Africa and in the disastrous Burma campaign. Yes, British war history was written with Indian blood. Now, let's answer the video's initial question. 6,700 kilometers is no small feat, so let's analyze how. The British built an efficient route to India, which explains the reason for their obsession with acquiring small territories. Randomly across all the seas during the 17th and 18th centuries, the route to India took between 6 and 8 months. Since they had to go around the Cape of Good Hope, so many trips without a stopover would have been fewer. Kind of crazy, right? For this reason, during this period, they conquered small island territories, such as the island of St. Helena. Yes, Genesea, where Napoleon spent his last days, and the Seychelles, taken from the French. Confronted by such intense activity, the English recognized the crucial need to control the seas. For that reason, they also strove to dominate the Mediterranean. Gibraltar and Minorca in 1713 after the War of Spanish Succession, and the island of Malta in 1800, also taken from the French. Entering the 19th century, as already mentioned, the peak of British power begins, especially after the victory over Napoleonic France. The British acquire new territories in the Indian Ocean, the Cape Colony, Mauritius, the Maldives, Sri Lanka, Aden, and the Chagos Archipelago. You know, it's better to have more stopover territories than to have too few. Already in the second half of the 19th century, a new great opportunity arises, trolling the French and, above all, the Egyptians. In 1858, the construction of the Suez Canal begins, led by the French government of Napoleon III, who was then the regent of Egypt. Ottoman vassal in theory, but almost independent in practice. He kept control of the canal, but at the cost of acquiring a tremendous debt. Unable to pay it, the British did not miss the opportunity to buy almost 50% of the shares. The perfect excuse for them to intervene in a nationalist uprising in 1850. In 1882, they took military control of the country. And no, their goal was not to show solidarity with the rebels, but to effectively control the canal and the Ottomans. Well, the sick man of Europe was so ruined that he even ceded Cyprus to them in 1878 in exchange for diplomatic support against Russia. The Greek island served as a perfect platform to monitor Russian influence and to protect access to Suez. The British were on fire. The new route to India, London, Gibraltar, Malta, Cyprus, Suez Canal, Aden, Ceylon, and Bombay and Calcutta reduced travel to India from 3 months to 3 weeks. A reduction of at least 40% in distance and 60% in time multiplied the economic and strategic value of the jewel in the crown. Not only because of the increase in trade, but also because the security of the new route encouraged British investors to put their capital into Indian railways, plantations, and industries, with returns guaranteed by the colonial government. Additionally, the route had a geopolitical and global impact. With control of the Raj, the British were able to project their power towards East Asia and Oceania. New trade routes were established to Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Australia, and New Zealand. And so, by collecting a series of small islands across the seas, the English forged the greatest maritime empire of all time, which would fall shortly after, but remained as a milestone in history. So what do you think? The British eagerness to acquire so many island territories? It was the cornerstone of the formation of their empire, whose heart was India. And the aforementioned route, the arteries that optimized this communication. A tremendous empire that was forged through colonial abuses and dirty tricks, but which was rejected, will be remembered for centuries and centuries. Don't forget to leave your comment and subscribe to the channel. Also, I'll leave my social media links in the description in case you want to watch the new videos in the premiere and have more interaction with me. Your donations on Patreon, una manito, net, or as a channel member are welcome. See you next time.